Welcome to another episode of Believe in the Broncos on the Believe Network, sponsored by Bet Online. I am Patrick Chiotti. I am one of your two hosts of this program. Joining me, as always, is former Denver Bronco Super Bowl 50 champion Chris Harris Jr. Chris, it's good to see you, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. It was good to come back and have good reviews from the minicamp and talking to the guys down there on the ground, man. They're saying they look pretty good.
Hey, that's all we can hope for with this rookie class. We have a lot to cover today. We have a special guest joining the show, Zach Neal, the managing editor of Ducks Wire from USA Today, the host of the Going Long podcast with former Oregon Duck Jonathan Stewart. Chris, you're very familiar with that guy.
Yes,
Zach, we had a great interview with him. He's going to tell us a little bit more about Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, and possibly the Broncos starting center, Alex Forsyth, who was also at Oregon with Bo Nix and Franklin. Lots to cover in this show. We're going to talk a little bit more about maybe some of the things that went wrong last year with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson and that whole scenario. We're going to talk, of course, Chris, you mentioned it, rookie minicamp, Bo Nix showing out, some of the young receivers that are showing out there, as well as maybe some free agents that are still out there that the Broncos could bring in before training camp gets going. Before we dive into all that, we've got a message from our sponsors. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, the NBA playoffs, and the NHL playoffs. And man, those NBA and NHL playoffs, Chris, I don't know how you're feeling about it, but it's getting a little dicey. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams throughout the season. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. And Chris, where we're going to start, before we get into our interview with Zach, there was a report that came out. You found it on letstalkbroncos.com. It's talking about a quote from CBS Sports reporter. Sorry if I get this name wrong. Aditi Kinkhabwala, who said Russell Wilson was constantly climbing out of the back of the pocket. He struggled with snap counts. He couldn't manage or handle the play calling. They went from putting a wristband on him to, by the end of the season, all the play calls had to be 2 words, and everybody else was required to know what the play calls were. There's a very, 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 I'm not exaggerating, valid reason that Sean Payton, who is one of the best quarterback coaches and best offensive minds in our game, who has had success not just with Drew Brees, but with Jameis Winston, with Teddy Bridgewater, is saying, I'm going to pay this guy millions upon millions of dollars to be nowhere near my locker room. Chris, that is a sharp dig at former Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson. This has been a drama that has lasted all season long. It's kind of like fighting with like an ex-girlfriend, and it just keeps coming back and coming back. What do you have to make of this quote? Yeah. And how do the optics look for the Denver Broncos in that whole situation with this?
Man, well, he didn't really stamp it and say that Sean Payton said this.
Right.
So we know that's probably from anonymous. We don't know who said it, right? But if it was somewhat harmful, I would suspect one of his teammates or somebody that's played with him to come out and defend him on this and say, like, he doesn't have an issue with play calling or snap counts or anything like that. Been doing it for, now. Or how many years? What year is Russell on now?
Oh, man, I think he's in year, 12, 13? Somewhere around there.
10 plus years, right? So this is like simple. That should be simple to him by now. Right. Yeah. So now climbing out the pocket. We all seen that all year, right? We've seen him definitely not take what the defense gives him, hold the ball, climb out of the pockets, create sacks, create negative yards, and kill drives. So we did see that, right? But
Yeah.
when they start to question somebody's intelligence, right, as a professional, I don't like to. I don't agree with that part right there. Just because
Yeah.
we would have to hear that from other people, especially guys that actually play in the league, for me to believe that.
Yeah, and that is something that, is a big part of this. It's you're talking about the intelligence of a quarterback, and for me, like I look at this report and I say, okay, like we need confirmation either from Payton about about what was said in here, or from somebody who was actually in that offense last season who can maybe speak to it. The stuff about the risk coach, I don't mind that. Like as a offensive play caller, like I don't care. Have your risk coach. I actually think that's easier. High school and college offenses, it's a lot easier to call concepts by one or two names. That's kind of just how it should be called at that level. But then you start getting into protection calls, and as you get more advanced, and then you get into the NFL offenses, those play calls are very long. I mean, we all remember that viral clip of John Gruden. I think he was ripping Chris Sims a new one because he couldn't get the play call right. It's a long play call. It's a lot to remember, but that's part of your job. And I think that if that part of it was true, if they did have to change the offensive play calls to like one or two words, I can see where that would be frustrating. I can see where that can be frustrating for not just offensive players, but for defensive players as well, because it's like you're getting paid how much money, and we're having to like dumb down our system to a couple of words, and offensive linemen don't know the blocking calls. We don't have the kill calls, so like we don't know what play is going to happen if we make adjustments. Like all of that kind of ties into it. I can see where people would be a little upset in the locker room if that was the case. But again, like we're taking someone else's word for this. We're not going to paint it as truth. As someone who has
see Russell Wilson as being struggling with this. Now I can see other players, some my younger guys might struggle with this, or learning the whole playbook. I just don't see Russell Wilson, a guy that you can tell he at least prepares. He at least takes his job serious. Right. So like that's something I can't just knock him on this part, right? But the falling out of the pocket he did do, not being really consistent in the pocket, and we want to judge that. We can judge his play all day. What we see, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. But now when that's like really character assassination when we're saying this guy can't go in a huddle, give you the play call. He doesn't understand snap counts, but he's just been an NFL quarterback for 12 years. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that part is bogus.
I struggle with that part as well, because there were a ton of times where you could hear it on the broadcast. You could hear his snap counts. And then when you go back and look at Sean Payton's offense and how he talks about the snap counts in his playbook, I mean, Russ was doing what he was supposed to be doing in that aspect. He was doing very well with pre-snap adjustments and understanding protection schemes and stuff like that. I think maybe, and this is me just playing the devil's advocate, I think maybe as the season went on, as your playbook grows throughout the year, and again, this is the first year that Russell Wilson had in this offense. He had no prior experience in this offense. He was running a lot of like West Coast. He was with Shane Waldron in Seattle, and those offenses are very different. Sean Payton's is very it's very like detailed in the verbiage, and the kill calls and the blocking schemes, all very dependent on those play calls. So I can see where like maybe some of it got to a point where it was a lot, but I have a hard time believing that they went all the way down to two words. That's a little crazy. Like he spent this whole offseason, like at least call the basic plays. They're going to have those same play calls. Like that's not going to change, but maybe as they added more stuff into the playbook, they were going to 2-word calls. That would make a little more sense. But like all in all, the offense going to 2-word play calls, that I don't see that happening at all. So that's the last we're going to speak on that. I'm done with Russell Wilson until the season starts.
Until they
Chris,
see you, until they let us know when he comes to the Mile High.
hey, we get the schedule released tomorrow.
Yes,
I don't know about you. Let me ask you this. Let's veer off. Who are you wanting to be that week 1 matchup? What team are you looking for the Broncos to be that week 1 game?
Yeah. Well, hopefully they set it up with Russell, because we don't want a chance it to be week 7, week 8, and no Justin Fields to start. But we know Russell Wilson's going to start week 1. So if I'm the NFL, I'm setting it up right away. Broncos versus Steelers. We got to play the AFC North this year. So we're going to have to play all those teams anyway. So I think it'll be perfect setup, man, to kick the season off versus them.
Good defensive matchup for Bo Nix potentially as well. I mean, you got
TJ Watt. Tough first game.
Yeah. Good corner, like good solid corners, young corners, pretty good run defense. Like that would be a really good matchup. And then of course, we would love to have that game in Denver. I'm sure Broncos fans would love to have that game in Denver for certain reasons. I would bet so much money, Chris, that the first snap, that the first play that Russell Wilson goes out on that field, the fans are counting down the play clock immediately.
Booing them.
And
I don't think he gets a welcome return. Even though it's not like he got traded or anything, we cut the dude. So, but I definitely see us booing him for sure.
Yeah, that's probably likely. Chris, let's shift gears here. The Broncos held their rookie minicamp this last week. It was the first opportunity for the Broncos and for media members to get a look at Oregon quarterback Bo Nix as the Broncos quarterback. And Chris, the reviews came out and they were raving about Bo Nix. A lot, some of the things that were said, he was very much in control of the offensive install. He was making all the right throws. He was very accurate. Surprised a lot of people. Sean Payton said that watching him in minicamp was like watching a good golfer. And honestly, I cannot think of a better way to describe a quarterback as like a good golfer. Like that's kind of the type of guy that you want. Watching Peyton Manning operate an offense, kind of like watching a really good golfer operate, his game out on the greens. Chris, what do you make of these rookie minicamp reactions? And do you think that we should put any value into what we're hearing come out of Dove Valley?
Oh, no, I think you definitely put some value in it. First impressions are always huge. And just watching the interviews and watching how he had approached practice from the videos I've seen, and just hearing from guys on the ground like Troy and Cecil that are there watching them, the guy came out ready. He's embracing the challenge of being a quarterback of the Denver Broncos. People don't understand there's a lot of pressure with that, right? Of being the face of the organization, the new guy of the organization. You want to come out and prove yourself, right? And I think that's what he's doing. I think he's embracing that. He's taking on that challenge. He's accepting it, and he's going to go out. He's going to go out there with a competitive chip. And I think he came out and from what I'm hearing, he came out, was ready to go, had a good showing. My guy that I liked, we talked about last week on with the undrafted is Blake Watson. I was hearing raves about him being a receiver threat and a running back threat. So it's gonna be some talent. It's gonna be some competition at running back. But I like the fact that Bo's embracing the challenge, right? Of being the face, of being that guy that I know y'all have quarterback woes the past decade, but I'm going to be the guy. So I like him taking that challenge.
I do too. I think that this is an opportunity. We've talked about this before on the show. This is an opportunity for him to kind of continue building on his story and his legacy. You're the sixth quarterback taken in this class. A lot of people were not putting you up there with guys like Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jaden Daniels. You have to watch a Husky go 8th overall ahead of you, and you fall down to a team that really maybe is the team that you wanted, and maybe is the team that you were kind of hoping to go to because of the coaching situation and all that. I think that this is an opportunity for Bo to kind of just keep growing that legacy. You mentioned Blake Watson. I love that because Audric Estime also looked massive. I'm really excited to watch this dude play. The more and more that I'm watching him at Notre Dame, the more and more I get excited about that prospect.
The kid looked like the Terminator, man.
Bro,
they said he's huge.
Hey, if he walks out there and he's got the red eye and he just starts going off, I'm fine with it. Let's get back to power football. Let's get back to just grinding the clock, running the ball. And now you have a quarterback that can work well in that system. Like, I don't have to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. I don't have to push the ball downfield every single time. We're just gonna hand it off to our massive beast of a running back. By the way, we've got 3 of them now with Javonte, Pirine, and Estime. And then you've got your good scat backs in Jaleel McLaughlin and now possibly Blake Watson. So it's going to be
the competition right there.
Yep,
they're gonna compete for that last scat back spot. / who can help on special teams right there.
And that is one of the position groups. We're going to do full breakdowns of these position groups, Chris, in the coming weeks. The listeners are going to be very excited to hear that. You're going to get very in-depth on all of these positions, but very excited to see the running backs. Chris, there was another position group that showed out at rookie minicamp, and that was the wide receivers. This was, of course, sans Courtland Sutton because he is holding out for more guaranteed money. But the rest of the receivers were there. Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, the 7th round pick out of Utah. Both of those guys apparently very impressive. We talked with Zach about Troy Franklin. You'll hear about that later in the interview. But Devon Vele, this could end up being a steal. This is a guy with good size, great footwork from what we've heard. He's 26 years old, so he's older, but that was, of course, because of the mission work that he did. This is a guy who could also help on special teams too. Chris, this wide receiver room is stacked. It's loaded right now. Who are you kind of seeing be maybe the odd man out? And is this a unit that Sean Payton could possibly keep more than 5 receivers? Because he kept 5 last year. He used primarily 5 last year. Could we see an opportunity where we keep more than 5?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with the core guys that they have already, with Mims. You got Mims, Courtland, and probably you pencil in Franklin because he's a solid high draft pick, right?
And Josh
you
Reynolds.
You just brought in Josh Reynolds, free agent receiver. So Vele has to be solid on special teams. He has to be a guy that can contribute there. So he definitely will have a chance, There's probably 2 spots open, probably 1 or 2 spots open that can compete for that. But you got to be a contributor on special teams because we see who's going to get the ball. We're going to try to feed the ball to Mims this year. And we're going to try to feed the ball to Courtland Sutton. So it's definitely a crowded room. Even the young players last year, Johnson. What's the other guy name?
Little Jordan Humphrey.
Jordan Humphreys. So you got a lot of guys in that room that was solid and that can contribute. So it's a stack room. Hopefully we can see what's going to happen with Courtland. Yeah. And you never know. They might feel comfortable with getting rid of Courtland or getting a trade after seeing the young guys this past weekend. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's still a lot of mystery going on there. I know that the reports say that there's no interest in trading Courtland Sutton at this time, but man, if Franklin comes out and he plays well, if Vele continues to play well, Tim Patrick comes back from injury well. I mean, there's still we didn't even talk about Jalen Virgil, who was a speed threat. He got hurt last year in camp. He's going to be coming back. Michael Bandy is another dude that could possibly he could fight to make the team. David Sills could fight to make the team as a special teamer. And then Philip Dorsett got released and then signed back. They did let go of Lincoln Victor, the former Washington State Cougar. So now, I mean, they've got 3, 6, 9, 12 receivers on this roster, and 5 spots just does not seem like enough. It seems like they're going to keep more than 5. I would say 6.
Let's go with 7 to 6. Because you can count Mims as a returner. So when you have him as a returner, you can kind of like not mark him as a receiver, so that can add another spot right there. So I would say 6 to 7.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about this in our position group breakdowns. We'll kind of go through, and then we're going to make our final thoughts about each position group. And then at the end, we'll have our forecasted Denver Broncos starting roster, essentially our 53-man roster by the end of it. So, Chris, before we get out of here, we're going to talk about free agents because there's still some key free agents out there on the market. Denver's just in a spot where there's a couple of areas where they could add depth, but I just don't see any free agents right now that kind of match that. Like, they signed Levi Wallace before the draft and they got him in. So that kind of added to the cornerback room. So they don't really need to add anybody else there. But is there any other free agents that are out there that you think would be beneficial for Denver to bring in before training camp starts?
It's hard. Denver's at a hard place, right? Where there's tons of free agents out there, right? But most of them are veterans, and probably are looking for a place to go be on a contender, right? Mm-hmm. There's Isaiah Simmons out there who's a freak athlete, and has played but he didn't have success in Coach Joseph's system, right? For some reason, he couldn't tap that potential that kid had. I would say Calais Campbell. He's a guy that could shore up the run defense. The run defense would be stout. Be able to bring him in. But, you got an Eddie Jackson out there, which is, he's been a ball hawk his career, but he's probably looking to go to a contender. Justin's probably looking to go to a contender. Stephon Gilmore probably looking to go to a contender. So all these veterans it's just not the good timing for Denver. Denver's not in that place right now where they're trying to compete right now for the AFC West title with the Chiefs.
Right.
And they're building up the younger guys right now. So right now, I would say probably Calais Campbell or Isaiah Simmons, just because Isaiah would be maybe under Sean Payton, he can tap into that freakish potential. And Calais Campbell is just another coach out there. He's going to shore up the run defense.
Yeah. I mean, Calais Campbell would be a home run free agent signing for them. Bring a local guy back home. He's someone that Broncos fans have kind of been pining for the last couple of years when he's hit free agency. Like, bring him in, please. There's a couple other guys out there that, you could make an argument for, but do they really fit? I think you were talking about linebackers before the show. Ben Neiman, who was with the team last year, more of a special teams guy, he's still out there. Blake Martinez, Bradley Roby, still a free agent. He's out there. Nick Vigil would be, decent linebacker depth. But I just feel like they're fine with where they're at. You're not really going to get rid of Alex Singleton at this point, unless someone else comes away and takes his position. And then, you've got Cody Barton, who's probably going to start. I just don't see them adding to the linebackers. I don't see them adding to the edge room because they did through the draft. They signed Levi Wallace as the corner. I think the only places that they would continue to add people are at safety or perhaps another veteran quarterback like a Ryan Tannehill. But I think that ship kind of sailed when they traded for Zach Wilson. So all in all, are there any free agents out there that the Broncos should bring in? Probably not. Calais Campbell would probably be the one guy. That's probably the one guy that I would say absolutely bring him in. But
you want to develop the other positions. We haven't developed our corners yet. We want to see Moss play. Mathis still has a lot of talent as a corner, and we also want to see this new kid. We want to see a kid from Missouri play, right? Because he's going to be. We think he's going to be nice. So you got to develop the younger guys, and we're still pretty young at safety, right? We're
Yeah.
still young. Still want to be able to get those guys some more experience to see what we have there. Edge, we're pretty young. Linebacker, we still want to see if Drew Sanders can pop his way in there, because being real, he should be starting next to Alex and Alex, right? Because Drew Sanders has all the freakish abilities and he's way more athletic, so he should be the guy that's taking that next step this year. My second year, I'm going to take the spot, right? So we want to see what he can do. So it's really no spot. We had the one, the veteran corner that we wanted, but they took Wallace. We didn't get a veteran safety, but we could say PJ Locke is a veteran. He's played 5 years now. So he's not very let's say young, but it's not the right time for the free agency right now. Maybe next year, because I have a lot more money. The dead cap will be, damn near gone. And hey, we'll see Bo Nix, see what he has, and we can be able to add pieces around him.
Oh man, I can't wait. There is one free agent, Chris, that we didn't talk about. That would be like a duh. Jimmy Graham is still a free agent. Would not be surprised if he ends up being in a.
He couldn't run last year, so I don't think if he can't run on turf, he's not going to run at the Mile High. So I think he probably put his pads over mine.
Man, well, Chris, thank you for joining us as always. Enjoy this interview with managing editor of the USA Today's Ducks Wire, the host of the Going On podcast with Jonathan Stewart. Zachary Neal, it's a great interview. We will be back next week with another episode. We're going to be breaking down Chris's position, the cornerback group for the Denver Broncos. Who's going to make this squad? What is this squad going to look like? What are our expectations? We're going to be talking about that as we start to get into our roster breakdown
and the schedule
and the schedule. We'll have the schedule to talk about. That was one of my favorite shows from last year, Chris. And that was the show where we kind of solidified ourselves as sightseers, because we told everybody about Houston.
We got to do it again.
We're going to do it again. Join us for the next episode of Believe in the Broncos. Make sure that you subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Make sure that you follow Chris, myself on Twitter at Chris Harris Jr., at Patrick Chiotti. Make sure you follow Believe Network as well. Make sure you go over to the YouTube and subscribe there. And make sure to send us any and all questions on Twitter. We would love to have a mailbag here soon. We'll talk about training camp. We'll talk about scouting. We'll talk about Chris's amazing college career. Whatever you want to talk about, just ask away. Until next time, Broncos country, we'll see you.